Welcome to the Intimate Marriage Podcast. I'm your host, Alexandra Stockwell. I'm a physician and an intimate marriage expert, and I specialize in showing couples how to have incredible, passionate relationships. I've been married for 25 years. My husband and I have 4 children and full professional lives, and we've created an amazing relationship. If you want to deepen your understanding of your own relationship and learn to access new heights of emotional, sensual, and erotic intimacy, you're in the right place. I will show you how. Now, let's dive in. Today is a treat in so many different ways because we are going to be diving in with Travia Steward. Welcome, Travia.
Thank you so much, Alexandra. I'm a little nervous, but I'm so honored to be here.
Oh, is there something in particular you're nervous about? Although I kind of am too, because we've had so many clunky things with my microphone and my pronunciation. Like, there's not usually this kind of awkward fumbling around before we start, but is there another reason that you feel nervous?
You know, it was when you said the word erotic, I was like, oh, where might we go? Because, I've had quite a journey myself with my sexuality. And so this might be a coming out conversation. I mean, I've come out, don't get me wrong. But when you said erotic, that was like, ooh.
Okay, well, would you like to tell your story? Not this second, but I'm asking, is that something you'd like to share?
If you want me to share that, I totally can.
Okay, I do, but let me just give a little bit more background.
Okay.
So Travia is a performance and success coach who is hired when people are tired of settling for the status quo. I just really love that description, and I think I'll share that we met because I was a guest on your podcast, Reinvent You.
Right.
And you are a reinvention specialist. And one of the reasons, there are a few, but one of the reasons I was really excited to bring you onto the Intimate Marriage Podcast to have a conversation is because I think reinvention in a lot of ways really is the name of the game when you want to experience a passionate, evolving, growing relationship. And so, yes, there's stability and steadiness in a good relationship, but there's a lot of reinvention. And so I'm really looking forward to that conversation with you. And I also really want to honor you as the first guest on my podcast who isn't heterosexual in a heterosexual relationship. So with that, please do share your story, knowing that I'm really interested to hear about reinvention in relation to the various aspects of yourself and
absolutely
how that pertains in relationship.
So I'm 51, and I didn't come to terms with my sexuality until I was like 37. And that was because I felt a lot of shame around it. I am from Louisiana, and it was something that we just didn't talk about. I mean, we always knew, I was raised Catholic, but it was part, East Texas is the Bible Belt, but a lot of the South is the Bible Belt. And so some relatives in my family, like my mom was Baptist. We would go to church and it would be like hellfire damnation. And the preacher would be in a pulpit preaching, it's Adam and Eve and not Adam and Steve. It's that whole thing that was like burned into my subconscious of you're going to go to hell if you do this, that whole thing. And so, there were some times in college when I'm like, but this is who I am. And I experimented a little bit. But the biggest part of that was I began working as a teacher, and I immediately felt shame again over it because I started working for the school district, and I was coaching softball. I was also directing theater, and I went on a workshop with them. And one of the coaches, like, there's a group of us in the van, and they're like, the first question they go, well, after my name, is like, are you a Christian? And so I said, yes, and I am, but that was the first. And so from that day, I worked at that school for 7 years, and I felt the need to hide who I genuinely was because they were so against that. And so I went through this whole process of I only dated men, of going, I'm just going to turn that part of my life off, and I'm just going to do what society expects me to do because I don't want to go to hell. And that lasted about 7 years or so of me being utterly unhappy. And then I started praying about it. And I said, because I'm a person who prays every morning, I would pray in the bathtub. And I said, God, I'm at a time in my life where I'm very lonely. Can you send someone? And then these things, people start coming into my life. I'm just invited to places where there are same-sex couples. And I was like, okay. And so I experiment a little bit. God sends me someone. And I was like, okay, God, thank you for that, but can you send me somebody else? Because that didn't work out, right? So God sent me an email from my wife right now. And it was in that moment where the first time we talked on the phone, it was for 8 hours. And I said, this is it. This is what I'm supposed to be feeling right now. And this is who I am. And I don't want to turn that off anymore. And I prayed about it and I prayed about it. And I finally began to feel better about it. And so I was still teaching in Texas, and it came down to the point of she lived in Arizona. We don't want to continue to have a long distance relationship. And long story short, I said to her after we had been dating for about 3 months, just so you know, I'll move. And I did. So that's the short version.
Okay, well, that is such a beautiful love story. And, the way I typically end all episodes is by saying that I deeply believe that relationships are the vehicle for personal growth. So what have you learned as a result of being in relationship with your partner? That's how I usually end the episodes, but I feel like let's start there. What have you learned about yourself, Travia, as a result of being married to your amazing wife?
One thing, so, and this is kind of an elaborated answer, I guess, but, I was a high school teacher. And so what I learned about myself was I hid, even though I moved to Arizona to be with her, all of those things, but I didn't allow my students to cross a line. And again, I'm a theater teacher, so I was asking them to be fully authentic, fully vulnerable, but I wasn't doing that. And it wasn't until it was before a play, and one of my students, now I don't discuss my personal life. And so one of the students said, "Hey, Miss Steward, is your wife coming to the play?" And I didn't miss a beat. And I said, of course, she never misses a show. But that student, right? She never misses. But that student gave me permission to be myself. He said, we know this thing. We love you because of it, maybe, definitely not in spite of it. And so from that, I realized that, you know what, I don't have to hide these parts. And so it made me want to be a better partner in a relationship, in a person. And because she was checking all the boxes that I wanted in a relationship, because I knew how I wanted to feel when I was with this person. And so it made me, before her, I always pictured myself as being pretty selfish. But because of her and since her, it was like I wanted to do things for her, with her, because of her. I'm inspired by her. So she changed me, and I was able to realize that, like, my full potential, which I'm still coming into. But I just learned that I'm so much more patient because of her. I'm so much more authentic because of her. Because, oh my God, Alexandra, so I am a person who, I don't wear feminine clothes. I like to be right in the middle. And so I remember we had gone shopping, and I wanted to wear the sweaters from the men's section because I like those. I didn't want to wear flowers and with, low crop tops. And I would sneak over to the men's section when there was no man walking through the area. And so whenever there was a man that walked through, and I would be like, oh, I would yell back to her, what size was he again? And then she would go, and she came over one day and she goes, honey, it's fine. Just turn around. And then I put my back to her, and then she held the sweater up to my back, and it was very obvious that it was for me. And she said, I love you, and I love you just as you are. And if you want this sweater, let's get it.
So it's really, she gave you permission, huh?
Oh, yes, absolutely. She gave me permission to be myself.
And earlier you talked about knowing how you wanted to feel in your relationship. Is that something that you can wrap words around?
Yes. So I think something that I had always hoped for with a partner is I wanted to feel like not just loved, but I wanted to know what it felt like when those two things meet. It can be cosmic, but I thought I had been in love before, but I knew in this moment that I wanted my heart to not explode because I want to keep it, but I just wanted to feel that burning sensation in the pit of my stomach. And I knew I had gotten there because before I moved to Arizona, I thought I was in love, but I knew I wanted to feel it, and I knew I had felt it when we were on the phone. And she said, I think I'm going to book a flight to see you this weekend because my heart hurts. And in that moment, my heart went it didn't explode, but it grew 8 times the size. I was like, this is the one. Oh my, and it was just like I felt it in my whole body. And I never felt that before.
Will you remind me how long you've been married? It's not in your professional bio.
It is not. We have been married for 7 years, but we've been together for 15. And the only reason it's 7 was because it was legalized then.
Understood. So 15 years later, do you still have that sensation from time to time of your heart expanding, not exploding, but really expanding?
Yes. And I have it when, because, we do the work and we know our love languages, and mine is physical touch. And then second is words of affirmation. So every now and then she can tell by how I'm moving through the house that I need those two things. And when she comes to me and says, I'm so proud of the work that you're doing. Oh my God. And then she touches me and it's orgasmic. And I'm like, and I just melt and my heart grows even more. And I still have those moments and I feel like I'm so easy. It's like, how can I still be this easy after 15 years? But I feel like I'm easy.
So have you ever
the wind blows.
I understand. So have you ever asked your wife, or do you intuitively know what she perceives in how you move through your house that has her choose to put her attention out, touch you, and say something true and affirming?
I have. And I was like, how did you know? So she loves that. She just knows. And she goes, I just know you. I know you better than I know myself. She has a PhD and she goes, I have a PhD in Trey. And so she never shares the specifics, but I tell you, she is 100% always right. 100%.
Okay. And do you have a PhD in her? Do you have that same conviction?
Well, I thought I did, but apparently about a month ago, she told me I had an associate's.
I love it when educated people bring out the insults.
Right. And I was like, no, I don't. So then I had to, see, here's the deal. Because I learned early on that just because I love physical touch and words of affirmation, I go, well, let me touch you how you're touching me and blah, 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 blah. And don't you feel what I feel? No. She likes acts of service. So I was overlooking all those things. So once I got back in touch, I was like, okay, that's not the way she wants to be loved. That just doesn't do it for her. So I was like, okay, let's get back to acts of service. And I remember discussing this with you on my podcast. It's like, what is the intent behind the action? Can you have a better loving intent in the actions of acts of service? And so I've been thinking about that since our conversation. And so when I get back in touch with that, and then she goes, you do know me.
That's
right?
Fantastic. Okay, well, I will definitely link to our conversation in the show notes. And I want to stop and underline this a little bit. So you're saying you previously did acts of service, but now with a more deliberate intention, the results are completely different.
Yes, because what was happening before, and she likes to demonstrate her love for me through acts of service as well. Because I remember, I was like, I was being a child and I was throwing, an adult tantrum. And I was like, I just need to know that you love me and I don't feel it, blah, 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 blah. And she was like, oh my God, I just proofed your cover letter. I just did this. I just did the doctor bill. There's this whole list of things. And she goes, how can that not say that I love you? And I was like, oh, okay. All right. But I just couldn't see all of that because I wanted touch. And so when I go back and I do the things that she wants me to do, one thing that's so special for her now is she likes for her mornings to be a little easier. So she goes to ASU every day and I work from home. And so it helps her if she doesn't have to stress about breakfast and fixing her frap. So we make a homemade sort of Starbucks frap at home that's only 75 calories. And every morning I've now put it in my morning ritual that I do my meditation, I do my gratitude. If I get my workout in before then, or maybe it's after, but I always make her frap. And then she looks at me and she touches me the way I want to be touched, but when she's going out to work, and because I made her frap. And so I know what that does for her. And so I want to make that frap. And I'm not doing it just because I'm going to do this so I get 10 cents back. No, I want to make that frap because I see how it takes a load off of her. It makes her relax a little bit. And then she feels my love through that.
Such explicit stories about the power of the love languages, including the fact that she paid the bill and she took care of this and that for you because she was doing acts of service for you, and then confused why you don't feel loved and feel appreciated, all the variations. Okay, so given all of this, you are an expert in reinvention. Will you connect the dots from, not to say that you've become a reinvention expert and exclusively through your personal experiences. I'm sure that's not true. But will you connect the dots between everything you've shared thus far in our conversation and your understanding of reinvention? In fact, let's start with a definition.
Right. So to me, reinvention it's finding a new gear for who you are today so that you can become the person your goals require you to be. And so my whole journey is I want these things in life. I have these definitions of success, but I need to reinvent myself. I need to rediscover. I need to reconnect. I need to reclaim my authentic gifts, strengths, and purpose on this earth so that I can align with that. And so all the multi-layers of reinvention that's what I believe it is.
And do you view your marriage as a place of reinvention as well?
That's a good question. As a matter of fact, yes, I would say I do. I've never thought about it like that. But we do, I am a different person today than I was 15 years ago. And because of me reinventing myself, I mean, it's a whole different relationship because, oh my goodness. So this is so crazy. I just hadn't thought about it before. And so I was diagnosed with early stage breast cancer in early 2020. And this is where the journey started with me going, I want to be who I want to be. And so I had a double mastectomy. And I was, I felt some shame around that. What are people going to think? Are people going to think I'm a guy? Do I need to put my pronouns? Do I need to do all this stuff? Because I tell you, I'm the softest person ever. And if you said something right now, I'd probably cry. And so, I am female 100%, but the reinvention came from I became more aligned with the body that I have right now with no breast than I ever had been. And I was able to reinvent myself in a more authentic form, which made me a better partner because I was no longer hiding. I was no longer pretending to go along with these things because that's what people expected. But I walk taller. I walk more proud. And that whole transformation allowed me, and it was the catalyst for me reinventing myself individually so that I could be a better partner. So I felt like I was holding back. I was hiding these things, and that was preventing me from being the partner that I wanted to be.
Are there particular journal prompts or tools or something actionable that you use with your clients who come to reinvent themselves? It sounds like in a more professional context. Are there any of those that you use in your marriage or someone else might get benefit from doing so?
Well, we do a relationship check-in. And so...
What does that look like? Will you take us like a fly on the wall? How does it get scheduled? How often do you do it? Like, take us into the nitty-gritty.
So I would love to say that we do it specifically once a month, but it's when I feel, and it's always me who instigates it. It's when I feel, I was like, oh, I'm feeling like we're a little disconnected. And so again, because she knows me so well, I walk into the room and I was like, just let me know when you get to a point so we can talk. And she goes, okay, it's that time again. And I go, yeah, it's that time, and so what we do is we go through a series of, how well am I meeting your needs right now? And then how well is she meeting? We bounce the questions back to each other.
Can I ask you, like, you put your phones down or do you have your question on the phone? Do you go, make a cup of tea? Like, take us into the whole thing. And, it's so that if someone else wants to do this, the more details you share, the more success a listener is likely to have when they do it themselves.
Yes. So we get rid of phones. We leave phones in another room. Phones, they're just not there. Generally, sometimes we're having a beer or we might be having like morning coffee. She'll have her frap. I'll have my coffee because generally my thinking time that's my magic time is in the morning. So my brain is just going 80 miles an hour. And so we know that it's time to talk about us. And so we put all distractions away. And then sometimes, like, we have a little dog and we have a cat, and sometimes they can kind of get, and we're like, okay, let's put Cayenne in the back room right now so that it can just be us, right? Because, Cayenne wants you to throw the ball. So we do get rid of all of the distractions. And then I always begin because she's generally not thinking like that, but she knows what's coming. But I always start with, how well am I meeting your needs? And then, where can I do a better job? And I'm a person who likes a rubric on a scale of 1 to 10. And, she might say, well, it's a 7. What would make it a 10? And like one time, recently, as a matter of fact, we just had it on Sunday. And we made agreements because I was just finishing a launch. And so I'd been busy working. We had our laptops in our laps at 8 p.m. And I was like, ooh. So I was like, okay, so we just did it again on Sunday. And so, one of the things that she said was, I want to feel like I can be able to talk to you about anything there is, even if it's work or whatever it is. And I know I can say anything to you, but sometimes she says you worry so much and I feel like I have to protect you from telling you too much. So then she holds it inside. And and then, we flip it, how can she better meet my needs?
Wait. So she says this to you. It sounds like something incredibly vulnerable, incredibly kind, not necessarily easy to hear, at least not the first few times you do this.
Right.
But it is a very generous communication from her. Then how do you respond?
Well, immediately I go to internally, I'm like, I don't do that, but I do listen. I do. You can't tell, because that's what we do, right?
Thank you for your honesty, yes.
Yeah. And so then I have to wait and go, okay, it's because I worry about her having a massive heart attack in the office, so she didn't tell me how stressed she is. And so I think and I listen and I reflect, and then I go, absolutely, I will work on that. And then I'm now aware of it. And so then in the subsequent conversations that are coming up, when she's telling me things, oh my God, I had 5 back-to-back meetings and so wants to meet now. And I'm like, turn that off. Don't, but it's like, no, I'm an administrator. These are things that I have to do. And so I receive it. And then I remind myself. As a matter of fact, I use reminders a lot. And so I will put a reminder in my phone of something that I know what it means. Like, even if it's listen more than I respond, listen more than I talk, hear her out, because sometimes I interrupt, and then I immediately go, oh my God, why did you, and it's like, no, just listen fully. And so I remind myself of those things as well. And then I thank her for sharing that, because sometimes I think you can get into a point of, well, I'm not going to tell you anymore because you don't know how to take it. Well, I'm not going to tell you because you just got, you got your panties in a wad about it. And so it hurt your feelings. And now I can't be honest with you. And we don't want that to happen. So, I'm aware of receiving it fully and openly, and then changing it.
And then you flip, you said, after doing that.
Yeah, I flip, and then it's a matter of, and sometimes, I'll go through and I'm doing really, really well. And then sometimes we get busy, and then I revert back. And then there'll be a gentle touch, and she's like, honey, remember we just talked about this? And I was like, oh, yeah. Yeah, okay. We certainly did.
And Travia, how do you feel about being the one who always brings it up? That's something that people sometimes get kind of wrapped up about.
I don't mind being the one, because the running joke between us is that, she's the realistic, the rational one, and I'm the woo-woo one. And so, she's going to make sure the bills get paid, and I'm going to make sure, that we good. Touch each other, that we feel good. Yes. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I don't mind at all, because, I'm the initiator every single time. And as far as she's concerned, she's like, we just have a different way a different definition of what being married and what love looks like. And her definition is it's sometimes it's scientific, sometimes it's academic. And, like I said, when she looks at acts of service and she goes, well, look at all these things I did. Now, I don't want to be with anybody else. I just want to be with you. And I was like, but I don't feel that. And so I don't mind bringing it up, because I just want to make sure that I'm doing all that I can to keep this marriage running as best as it can, because I want to be in love until my last breath, until I'm 100, until she's 99. And so, I don't mind that at all.
I love that. I don't know that I've I mean, I think people want that, but I don't know that I've heard somebody say it with that passion and joy. I want to be in love until I'm 100 and she's 99. So given that that is your vision, is there some... Is that your dog? I like hearing your dog.
Yes, I can. Yes.
Cayenne, right?
Yes, that's good.
Yeah, well, that's okay, because you and I are not having one of those conversations where we need the phones and the dog out of the room. It's totally fine. Mm-hmm. So, have you found something in particular that you think is the key to your feeling in love when you're 100? I mean, maybe you've just shared it with us with the ritual, the questions that you ask. Mm-hmm. But if that's not it, what do you, like, what's the flavor that you make sure to always add to your day?
You know, and again, I took a lot from our episode, and I remember you saying that one of the keys that you talk about is being curious about each other. And so the thing that I know that's very special about us, there are certain things that are just between the two of us. There are certain things, like we have this thing, and I learned this about her early on in the relationship, and it's communicating in a way that only the two of us, so we feel so connected, and we only talk about the things that the two of us know what that is. So it's like, one of our favorite things to do is to go drink craft beer. And so like on our anniversary, we might go to 3 different craft breweries, and then the conversations we have during those that sitting in that outing is like, sometimes when we are kind of, you know, we've just been busy, but we reconnect on a level that it's like, this is our thing. So it's almost like having our thing. And if I were to go out and tell somebody else like that, you know, have a thing like that with somebody else, it like breaks it. And so we honor the things that are our things. And I don't go out and do that thing with the other person. Now I might go out and have a beer with my friend, but it's not the way we do it. We have that's like those conversations are so intimate to where, I mean, there are times when I can't tell you how many other people is in that facility, in the restaurant, in the craft brew, because it's just the two of us. And
you know, so, Travia, yeah, it's a very profound answer you're giving, and there's actually data to support that. Not that having what you're describing is necessarily causative, but it correlates with long-lasting happiness. And a way that it's described, which is a little bit less nuanced than what you said, is like when a couple has affectionate nicknames that they only use for one another and with one another.
Right.
That's an example of the kind of thing you're talking about, where there just are certain experiences and certain things you say and certain ways of being that you only share with one another. And that really does, the research shows that correlates with long-lasting happiness. It's not necessarily causative, but it reflects it.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yes. So it's really interesting to me that you didn't know that. Not that I thought you would have or you wouldn't have, but it brings me to a point which is so important, which is that I think there's so much that we can learn from other people, obviously, but to a certain degree, every fantastic, happy, passionate relationship is uniquely so. In other words, the two people in it create it and maybe use principles that I share or other people share, but fundamentally it's going to be a unique and creative endeavor to create that passion with another person. I think you've demonstrated that really beautifully.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, for anyone who wants more and wants some support in their reinvention, what's the best way to find you? And please share anything else you would want listeners to know.
Absolutely. So they can go to my website. It's traviasteward.com. I'm on social media, Travia Steward. I'm on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and sometimes people just want to have a conversation. Sometimes, I can help them reinvent, if they're ready for change. And so just being ready, like even taking a step in being ready to change in your relationships, in your health, that type of thing. And I take a holistic approach to who is it? You have this goal, right? Who is it that you need to become, that your goals and your dreams desire you to become? And that is the whole process of reinvention. And so traviasteward.com, and we can have a conversation.
Wonderful. And we'll certainly have that in the show notes. And by all means, do a check-in with your honey.
Yes. This was a beautiful conversation, and I did know it would be. I did, because I thought we had a beautiful conversation on mine. I knew it would be. So thank you so much for that.
My pleasure.
Thank you for listening to the Intimate Marriage Podcast. For more information about Alexandra, her book, and her coaching services, go to theintimatemarriagepodcast.com.